Yo guys, welcome back. My name's Nathan and today we're going to be taking a look at every single NHL team's worst trade throughout their entire history. Now, this was a pretty big video to make, going through every single team, tracking down their worst trade of all time, and as you can probably tell, we're going to be featuring some Ryan O'Reilly content here. And I am also just realizing now that I have the blue jersey on and not the Sabres jersey to match. Alright, so forgetting about that because I'm too lazy to get the Sabres jersey out, let's get straight into it. So, what do I see as the worst trades of all time in NHL history, and what do I see as the worst trade for every single NHL team and your favorite team in the NHL? Watch till the end for all the bad trades and all of my picks, and of course hit that big red subscribe button for more ranking content just like this one. Now we're going to start out today's video by going in reverse alphabetical order, going from Winnipeg to the Anaheim Ducks, and starting with the Winnipeg Jets. This one was kind of hard, of course, thanks to Kevin Cheveldayoff. We haven't seen that many trades just in general, but one stands out to me, and that is the Kevin Hayes trade. Now, this happened about a year ago and was a trade deadline rental, and Kevin Hayes was just all right for Winnipeg, ended up going to the Philadelphia Flyers in that offseason and signing with them. But in the process, they gave up Brendan Lemieux and their first-round pick. They would, of course, later get that first-round pick back, but they would have to trade Jacob Trouba in the process. Now, he hasn't been fantastic for New York, but I think the Winnipeg Jets probably could have handled that better, though they definitely salvaged it quite a bit. Then going on to the Washington Capitals, this one is pretty freaking obvious. That, of course, being the Philip Forsberg infamous trade. Now, of course, it was Michael Lotta and Martin Erat to the Washington Capitals. In exchange, the Nashville Predators get some bum Swedish prospect named Philip Forsberg. And although Forsberg hasn't absolutely lit up the NHL, maybe compared to what his skill might present, that's still a player that brings so much offensive value to the Preds that the Washington Capitals would definitely like to have. Then going on to the Vegas Golden Knights, just like Winnipeg, we haven't seen that many trades, but there is one that stands out to me, that being the Tomas Tatar trade. Now, they gave up a 2018 first, 2019 second, 2021 third for Detroit, and of course got Tatar. He would barely play any games with Vegas, would then be a part of the Max Pacioretty trade, but it still stands that it really did not go their way in that way. Then going on to the we're next up going to go to the Vancouver Canucks, my bad. And this one is also more on the obvious side, that being the Cam Neely trade. Now, the Vancouver Canucks acquire Barry Patterson, and the Bruins get defenseman Cam Neely, and 1987 first-round pick ended up being Glenn Weasley, but Cam Neely, of course, was the big part of that trade, would be an awesome player for the Boston Bruins, and the rest will be history. Then going on to the Toronto Maple Leafs, this one is definitely even worse, and by the way, it could have happened. I mean, this would have been a huge addition to their team. They, of course, acquired Tom Kurvers in October 16th of 1989, and in exchange, the New Jersey Devils got a first-round pick in 1991. That one would become a third overall pick and would become Scotty Niedermayer. Not too bad of a player, and definitely a player Toronto would have loved to have. Then going on to the Tampa Bay Lightning, they haven't really made too many bad moves in their history, but there is one that I think they would like to have back, that being the Brad Richards deal. Now, Brad Richards was acquired by Dallas, same with Johan Holmquist, and the Tampa Bay Lightning got Jeff Halpern, Jussi Jokinen, Mike Smith, and a fourth-round pick. Now, Mike Smith and Jussi Jokinen on paper isn't a bad deal, but both of those guys would end up leaving the organization pretty soon after this trade. Meanwhile, for Brad Richards, he would put up some of his best seasons in Dallas and continue to be one of the league's better players at that point. Then going on to the St. Louis Blues, their worst trade is the Adam Oates deal. Now, they were kind of forced their hand here because they didn't want to pay Adam Oates what he deserved, and he ended up going to the Boston Bruins. In exchange, they got Craig Janney, Stefan Quintal, two solid players, but Adam Oates would become, or was becoming, a legendary player and would be awesome as well for the Boston Bruins. Now we go on to the San Jose Sharks, and there will be a lot of people saying that Erik Karlsson is the pick here, and I still respect that, but there is one trade that I think is more damaging to what could have happened. Now, the Montreal Canadiens in 2007, February 25th, acquired Josh Georges and a 2007 first-round pick. In exchange, the Sharks acquired Graviteh and a fifth-round pick. Didn't really turn out too much for the San Jose Sharks. Meanwhile, for the Canadiens, Georges will be continuing to be a solid defenseman, and that 2007 first-round pick would have been Max Pacioretty at number 22 overall. Now, just thinking about how the San Jose Sharks playoff runs happened, I mean, Max Pacioretty was arguably in his prime around 2015, 2016, where, of course, the San Jose Sharks would end up going to the Stanley Cup Final, losing to the Pittsburgh Penguins. But imagine if they had Max Pacioretty in his prime. Just in 2015 with the Habs, he got like 11 points in 17 games. That would have been nice to have on San Jose, and he would have been a definite key part of that top six in that whole team, in that whole organization, and especially in that 2016 run. Definitely could have helped San Jose potentially get past the Pittsburgh Penguins. Then going on to the Pittsburgh Penguins' worst trade. This one, of course, is the Marcus Naslund trade. They ended up getting Alek Stojanov, but Marcus Naslund, who ended up being a beast for the Vancouver Canucks, is really just it. That's all I have to say at that point. Now, for the Philadelphia Flyers' worst trade, this one also was more on the obvious end, of course, being the Eric Lindros trade. Now, for anybody that's saying that Lindros was bad on the Flyers, no. Lindros was still an incredible player when healthy for Philadelphia, but of course, we all know what they gave up. It's Peter Forsberg, Ron Hextall, all this different stuff, all this different cash considerations, all this different pile of stuff, but the main thing, of course, was Peter Forsberg, who also had his issues with health, but will be a main reason and a big part of the Avs core and will be legendary for that team too. Yes, Lindros was great for Philly, but wasn't the greatest trade at all. Then going on to the Ottawa Senators, this one I think is just rough. And we go back to 2010, June 25th. The St. Louis Blues acquired the 2010 first-round pick. In exchange, the Ottawa Senators acquired David Rundblad. Now, at the time, Rundblad was still a solid prospect defensively and did have potential. But that first-round pick, 16th overall, would, of course, become Vladimir Tarasenko. And I don't really see this trade discussed that much. But the Ottawa Senators, imagine, especially in 2017, if they had Vladimir Tarasenko, that changes a lot. And who knows, maybe they get past the Pens, too. Then going on to the New York Rangers' worst trade, this one, of course, being the Rick Middleton deal. Back in 1976, they acquired Ken Hodge Sr., and the Boston Bruins acquired Rick Middleton. He, of course, would have a couple of 100-point seasons with the Bruins and would bite the New York Rangers in the butt. Then going on to the New York Islanders' worst trade, there is some great options from the Mike Milbury era, but the one, of course, is the Alexei Yashin trade. Now, Yashin was still a solid player for the Islanders when healthy, but that was the main thing. Health was a big issue, and the Ottawa Senators would get Bill McAuliffe. They would also get Zdeno Chara and that second overall pick in Jason Spezza. Not the worst haul in the world for the Ottawa Senators, and Jason Spezza were turned into a pretty decent player. Now going on to the Montreal Canadiens' worst trade, and it's the Patrick Waugh trade. I mean, there's really nothing else to go on here with Montreal. People do sometimes forget that they basically had no leverage, but still, when you're trading one of the best goalies of all time, maybe the best goalie of all time, even though I'm a little bit of a Hasek fan, do not at me. Yeah, you just did not get enough, and the Avs definitely said thank you in that deal. Then going on to the Minnesota Wild, their worst deal surrounds Brent Burns. Back in 2011, the San Jose Sharks got Brent Burns and a 2012 second-round pick, and back for the Wild, they got Charlie Coyle, Devin Setoguchi, and a first-round pick, which would become Zach Phillips. He wouldn't really become anything. The big part for the Wild was Charlie Coyle, but of course now he's on the Minnesota Wild, or on the Boston Bruins, and they didn't really get too much for him either. So you have Brent Burns on the San Jose Sharks, who of course would become one of the best offense defensemen in the NHL, and do quite well for San Jose. Then going on to the LA Kings, their worst trade dates back to 1980, where they traded Butch Goring for Bill Harris and Dave Lewis. Now, decent players for LA, but Butch Goring, who was already a pretty great guy for the LA Kings, would be a key part of those Islanders' playoff runs and that Islanders dynasty too. So, not the greatest for the Kings either. Then going on to the Florida Panthers, this one is just a dunking on Dale Talon. That, of course, being the Riley Smith trade. Now, obviously, I would have maybe included the March or so incident, but that wasn't a trade. The Riley Smith trade was a trade, of course, and they got a 2018 fourth-round pick, has basically turned into nothing at this point, and the Vegas Golden Knights are enjoying the reaping of their sow of one of the better play-driving wingers in the league, too. Then going on to the Edmonton Oilers, it's the Wayne Gretzky trade. I mean, I could this deserves like 10 different videos, but yeah, Wayne Gretzky to the LA Kings. They'll definitely thank them for that. Then going on to the Detroit Red Wings, this is something that people sometimes forget a lot, but Marcel Dionne, of course, traded from the Detroit Red Wings to the LA Kings. Now, I do want to say that Dionne wanted to be traded at the time. He wanted to go to a winning team. Didn't end up winning that cup of the LA Kings, but I mean, even it's the same thing like the Watt trade. They didn't really have too much leverage, but the things they got really didn't turn into anything major, and Marcel Dion on the other side turned into a pretty okay NHL player. Quite productive for LA too. Now going on to my favorite team, the Dallas Stars, and I know I'm wearing the St. Louis jersey, but trust me, their worst trade, of course, is the Corey Perry deal. Now, they never had Corey Perry, but they traded the picks that would have become Corey Perry. They, of course, gave the 28th overall pick to the Anaheim Ducks. In exchange, they got a second-round pick and a second-round pick, both in 2003, which would become B.J. Crombeen and Wojtek Polak. The wrong Polak, trust me. On the other side, of course, Corey Perry drafted 28th overall, and that would start the hatred that Stars fans have for Corey Perry. Now, of course, he was on the team and was kind of insane as the playoffs went by, so yeah, we're kind of in a weird position. It's definitely not weird at all. Then going on to the Columbus Blue Jackets, their worst deal, and I still can't believe this actually happened, is the Jeff Carter trade. Back in 2011, the Blue Jackets went after center Jeff Carter, and the Philadelphia Flyers got Jacob Voracek, a 2011 first-round pick, and a 2011 third-round pick. Now, Jacob Voracek by itself, that's a horrible deal for the Blue Jackets. But that first-round pick in 2011 will become Sean Couturier, and that third-round pick in 2011 will become Nick Cousins. Now, Nick Cousins, of course, isn't with the Flyers anymore, but Sean Couturier and Jacob Voracek, not the worst haul in the world for Philly at all. Then you go on to the Colorado Avalanche, and to me, their worst deal, we get into the first Ryan O'Reilly deal. Yay, let's go. Well, it's the Ryan O'Reilly deal. I mean, yeah, for me, this is just rough. They gave up Ryan O'Reilly and Jimmy McGinn to the Buffalo Sabres. In exchange, they got Zadorov, Grigorenko, JT Compher, and a 2015 second-round pick. The only thing that's still there for the Avs is JT Compher, and he's a solid player, but nothing that absolutely stands out. And although the Sabres did not handle Ryan O'Reilly at all, I mean, it's Ryan O'Reilly. Imagine Ryan O'Reilly with Nathan McKinnon still on that Avs team. Then going on to the, actually, Chicago Blackhawks are next. There was a couple of pretty interesting ones, but I think the main one is the Artemi Panarin trade, at least in recent memory. Now, you also have the Dominic Hasek trade, and that's a good one. But to me, you give up Artemi Panarin, you get Brandon Saad back. You now have him in Colorado. Meanwhile, Artemi Panarin is doing pretty decently in the NHL. Not sure if you heard, he's all right. He was pretty all right with Chicago, and is now pretty all right with the New York Rangers. Who would have thought? Then going on to the Carolina Hurricanes, there wasn't really too many major ones with the Canes, but one that kind of stood out to me was the Sebastian Jaguar trade. Now, he would end up being traded to the Calgary Flames, and he really didn't become anything major until he was also traded from the Flames. So, I'm not really sure if I should point all the blame on the Carolina Hurricanes, and of course, they ended up working out pretty decently with Cam Ward in their cup run, but imagine that Canes team with Jaguar instead, and that would have been a whole nother timeline, which would have been even more wacky. Then going on to the Calgary Flames, their worst trade, of course, is the Brett Hull trade. Now, this trade also became also infamous, but there was some locker room contentions there with Brett Hull. He was that rising up-and-coming star, and there was a lot of players still on that team, of course, from that cup run, and in that trade, of course, it just did not work out too well for the Flames. For the Blues, they got Brett Hull, and the rest is history. Then going on to the Buffalo Sabres. Second time's the charm for Ryan O'Reilly. We got two monitors for two Ryan O'Reilly trades. This one, of course, for the St. Louis Blues, working out quite well. They acquired Ryan O'Reilly. And for the Sabres, they got Vladimir Sabatka, Patrick Berglund, Tage Thompson, a 2019 first-round pick, which would become Ryan Johnson, and a 2021 second-round pick. Now, I'm going to say this right now. I had some hope for Tage Thompson, and I didn't know what that first-round pick would become, so I wasn't liking it for the Sabres, but I thought maybe there was some potential there. Basically, everything about this trade has been a disaster for Buffalo. I mean, I like Ryan Johnson, but I don't think he was worth a first-round pick, and he's probably at max going to be a bottom-pairing D-man. Who knows what that second-round pick becomes in 2021, but the St. Louis Blues found themselves a decent number one guy in Ryan O'Reilly, which didn't really turn out too well for the Sabres anyways. But hey, it's the Buffalo Sabres, so it's common. We'll just let them do their bad trades, as they always do. Anyways, going on to the Boston Bruins, this one being the Jumbo Joe Thornton trade. And this is one of the legendarily bad ones. They ended up getting Wayne Primeau, Brad Stewart, and Marco Sturm. Solid players back to Boston and decent NHL players. But obviously, Joe Thornton would become an absolute madman with the San Jose Sharks. Of course, now is a Toronto Maple Leafs legend, but we'll not talk about that, Boston. I mean, if Boston wants to keep giving legends to the Toronto Maple Leafs and keep them giving them the best players from like 2010, I will not complain. Then going on to the Arizona Coyotes and their worst trade. This one, yeah, is not the greatest. To the Buffalo Sabres, the Sabres acquired Daniel Briere and a 2004 third-round pick, which would later become Andre Sekera. Back to the Arizona Coyotes, they got Chris Grant and a 4th-round pick. Chris Grant would only play 2 seasons in AZ. Meanwhile, Briere will be an awesome player for the Sabres, and Andre Sekera will become a pretty solid NHL player. Then for our last team and our last worst trade, featuring the Anaheim Ducks, or, well, yeah, the Anaheim Ducks. They weren't the Mighty Ducks back in 2009. This one being the Chris Kunitz deal. Now, poor Ryan Whitney, back in that deal, got sent to the Anaheim Ducks, was solid for them in his time there, but the Penguins would get Erik Tangradi and Chris Kunitz. Kunitz would be a big part of those Penguins playoff runs after that, and of course would become huge into 2017. So for the Pittsburgh Penguins, didn't work out too badly. But yeah, especially for the Anaheim Ducks, a guy like Chris Kunitz, who was such a great playoff performer, definitely would have been nice to have in the 2010s. But that is going to be it for today, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. Let me know what you think of these double monitor setups. I don't actually have my monitors like that. It just kind of looks cool for one day. I have like a book set. I have like a bunch of books stacked up on that, so get a little bit of a behind the scenes there. But yeah, let me know what you think of that. Make sure you share this video with your friends. Comment down below, what do you agree and disagree with, and what do you think is the worst trade from your favorite NHL team? I don't know. Make sure you click on this card right here to watch all my rankings videos. Right on one playlist. My name is Nathan. Thanks so much for watching. You're an absolute beauty, and I'll see you in the next video or stream. Goodbye.